All right, so we're here. That was Uju Odumaki, women's rights activist and president, Women Rights for Change Initiative and the Campaign for Democracy. So she says it is okay, but Nigerians must be vigilant. I introduce the panel to you now, and we get right down to business. I have right beside me here Mr. Kunu, Adeniyi Kunu.
I say good afternoon to everybody in respective locations across Lagos. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Pleasure to have you once again. He is a journalist. We also have in the house today Victor Anya. He is with the Authority newspaper. It's good to have you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We also have Mr. Biodun Showumi. He is a journalist. It's good to have you.
I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, right? Reactions have been trailing the mode of release of the 82 Chibok Girls. Some people say that, how can you go and release 5 Boko Haram commanders to come and unleash terror on Nigerians? But some people are saying, imagine the wild joy the parents and family relatives of these girls must be feeling. Tell me how you feel, though.
Well, let's first of all say it's exciting to have people in the den of terrorists get out after, well, 3 years. But another thing would be that I think the government needs to check its mechanisms of communicating with people when it comes to security issues. Nigeria is peculiar for the way we do things, and this instance of the release of the girls happens to be another. But we may not talk so much about the release of the girls, but we may talk about the post-events after the girls are out. My concern is the fact that the one they released in October of last year have not been able to go back home to their parents. These ones are 82. They still are with the authorities, as we learned, and they've not been able to really make some genuine physical contact with their parents. I can understand that when you bring girls out of captivity, you need to let them go through some form of rehabilitation, and that is not a one-day business. But that being said, I think it is very critical that for parents who themselves are very traumatized to be able to see, touch, speak with, or hold for an agreed period of time, not so much about taking them back to their homes immediately, but there is a way it heals, because this is talking about psychological damage. So I think that is very, very important in all of those things. Now, we could go back to what you said earlier in respect of what is it about the release, what is it about the things happening. I think strongly that people who talk about the negotiation strategy may not understand that terrorism is a very unique kind of trouble, that when you deal with it from Lagos to Atlanta in the United States of America, it has its own procedures. Now, we've got over 200 girls. They have less than that number, I want to believe so, in the custody of government, maybe in incarceration. Now, you want these people to come out because there's pressure on you by Nigerians, there's pressure from the international community. I think what the government may have felt then was, well, let's have some of this girl come around, because no matter what, if we take 82 and not to 21, that's over 100. It's some relief. So if they say they want 5, I think in terms of numbers, we're still at advantage position. But of course, government needs to reinvent the mechanism with which it communicates with people and the nature of what it makes available to Nigerians.
Information, right?
Most definitely.
All right, so let me come to you, Victor. So the federal government thanked the Swiss government as well as the Red Cross for securing the release of the girls after very long and tough negotiations, right? This one must know what they're doing. But as a Nigerian, what do you think about this ongoing debate that 5 Boko Haram commanders shouldn't have been released? While on the other side, we have people saying 82 girls released. What are we talking about? I want to have your say on this.
Well, for me, it's a good thing. If we exchange 82 girls for 5 insurgents, that's a good one. But I have that in my heart that this issue of adoption is politically motivated. That is my position. Because why I'm saying this is this. Other people have been kidnapped or abducted before those of the Chibok Girls. We did not hear much about them. Why is it that we are hearing so much about the issue of the Chibok Girls? This is a question that has been troubling my mind. And again, we were told that the army, has combed the whole of Sambisa. And we were told anyhow that the girls will be kept in Sambisa. At one point where the girls moved out of Sambisa to Cameroon, we were not told that. And again, when we look at the girls closely on television, when they were freed, you find out that the clothes they were wearing, those are not clothes of people that were in captivity for 3 years. If somebody was in captivity for a month, for a year, you will see on the faces of on the face of that person, you will see it from the clothes. You cannot wear one cloth for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years and look so radiant the way they wear. You cannot be in captivity for 3 years and look so fresh. Even they are more fresh than those ones that are in IDP camp. When you compare the two, those who are in IDP, they were so emaciated. How come that people who were under insurgent for 3 good years look so fresh? Look at their faces. They did not show that they were under captivity. So we should be told the truth. We should be told it. I know that there was kidnapped, but not by Boko Haram. They were kidnapped. I believe that, but not by Boko Haram. Because if you look at what transpired on that day, the principal of the school, all the management staff of the school, none of their children was involved in the kidnap. And today, nobody has told us why all of them were not on ground at the day of the kidnap. None of those staffers, the security guard, none of them. And there has never been incidents of Boko Haram attack in a place that nobody lost his soul. It is only in the case of the Chibok Girls, the government school Chibok, that Boko Haram were attacked and nobody was killed and girls were taken away. The children of the principal, the vice principal, security guard, all the staffers, none of them were on ground at it. And nobody asked question, how come that all of them deserted the school on the very night that the kidnap took place? Nobody is asking this question. And again, nobody asked the governor, you are the chief security officer of the school, of the state, who have been collecting security vote from the federal government. What action did you take? They put all the blame on the presidency.
Okay.
I said the presidency is the chief security officer of the state. The president is the chief security officer of the whole country. But the governor is the chief security officer of the state who's supposed to inform the president, and there was no such thing.
I get your point, right? Let me come to you, show me. I don't know if it's the same girls I saw who were looking quite skinny that Victor saw. But he says that these girls were fresh looking. He was also querying the fact that their clothes were not the same clothes that they were wearing when they were taken into captivity. But isn't there a possibility that based on the negotiations, they would have prepared for the release of the girls and would have arranged some clothes for them? I'm just asking, right? I want you to explore this angle a little bit. He said this is a politically motivated saga. You think?
Yeah, for me, it's neither here nor there.
Okay.
You know, because when you look at the micro sentiments being expressed, and you just need to look at it carefully, there are possibilities. For instance, it's on record that kidnappers, particularly militant kidnappers, do take care of their hostages very well, particularly when they intend to use them for bargaining for the release of their members. It's on record. Go to any country in the world. That has always been the case. There are also situations where militants capture people, but because they do not intend to use them for the release of their leaders, only for monetary purposes, then they tend to care less about it. These tendencies are there. You know, it's about the where you stand on the micro sentiments. Mm-hmm. The more germane issue for me on that is the fact that there was a security advice that the exam should be held in Abuja.
But it was ignored.
It was ignored, and they chose to have the exam there. There was also the issue of the presence of the daughter of the principal of the school, who was actually on ground at the time, based on information. And she was not kidnapped. So, for those expressing sentiments that maybe is politically motivated, there's some reasons to think along like that. The issue again is, when you look at the release, the 2 releases we've had in relation to the Chibok Girls have always been happening in May of every year. So why May last year and why May this year? What is special about May?
But why not May?
Yeah, but why May? You know, it's possible it's simply a coincidence. The fact of the matter is, we were faced with major issues May last year when people were complaining about the government not performing, and then there was so much outcries about policies and all that. And then suddenly we had the Chibok Girls released in May. And now again, we are going towards the second anniversary of the Buhari's regime. Again, there was so much concern about poverty, about the health of the president, and the president now intends to travel indefinitely, and suddenly we now have Chibok Girls again being released. These are conjectures. They are neither here nor there. Nobody knows the truth except people in authority. But the fact of the matter is, if you take it and look at the precedents in other countries, let me give you a good example. The IRA in UK, the Irish Republican Army, before terrorists are released, they are always made to renounce violence. In our case, did they renounce violence? We've not been told that, because you cannot just release terrorists to endanger the whole society. You can't just do that. The fact of the matter is, I have always been a champion of the cause of the Chibok Girls. I believe that any price is worth paying, but it should not be a price at the detriment of the rest of the country. You know, no, so we don't have enough information to conclude on that. Another thing we need to look at is, look at Syria. So many people have been captured, including Americans, different nationals, German, French. Some of them were killed because they refused to meet the demands, you know, of those Western government. It's not in all cases that you have to say you must meet this demand if particularly they will pose threat, you know, to people at home. You know, they will pose threat to more people. In the case of Russia, if you look at the last Russian killed, the only reason why that Russian was killed was because the Russian president will not agree to the release of some people arrested in Russia over one bombing that happened in the Caucasus. And then they had to hold on to that Russian, you know, Russian intelligence officer. And I think it's last week that the guy was killed, because there was no way they will agree to release those ones to pose more risk to the rest of the people. So we don't have enough information, which is one of the problems with this government. Is either media advisors are not being told what is going on, or things are being done in secrecy. We do not have enough information to conclude on all these things. But it is really warning for the general public, because if you have to release terrorists, then we need to have some safeguards in place. Those safeguards, we have not been told, are in place.
Okay, so let me come to you. I'm going to ask you more on this, but let's find out what you think, right? So there are doubts, especially Victor thinks this is all political. If it is political, do you think the international community would allow themselves to be fooled, considering the fact that this became an international campaign for the Chibok Girls to be released? I don't know what...
In the first place, let me tell you that terrorism is an international problem.
Yes.
And any country that is affected by such will definitely get the sentiment and support of the international community, because it's on a larger scale across the Atlantic and even on the sides of the Atlantic. That being established, let me come back to the issue of the believability or not. At the outset of this session, you asked about, you know, how true this is and the rest of it all. I think information is very, very key. If 82 girls have names, who are the 5 Boko Haram commanders? When were they actually arrested and incarcerated? I think if we have the identities of those people, it is equally important to give us some identities of people, because we are part of the security network of the country, no matter how little we contribute to that. So I think it is very important that whilst we rejoice on the one hand, let us also begin to wear our togas of concern in respect of the things that may recur, the things that may happen by virtue of the release of those commanders. For them to have specified that these commanders are the ones they needed released, it is either their importance to the technological damage they've been causing the country over time, or the fact that they are the think tanks of these Boko Haram insurgents. So I think it is very critical that we begin to look at this. Now, the believability is another thing before you move to my friend here. You see, I keep wondering, as much as I do not want to stop believing, that it is very, very huge concern, I must say, for the people who came to a school, operated so much as to have taken over 200 persons, and there was no teacher maimed, there was no teacher also apprehended or taken. The people who are the authorities of the school have their words there, none of them. It worries me, even whilst I rejoice on the one hand.
So let's not dwell too much on how this thing happened, because that's not what we are discussing.
Good.
But you remember that one of the campaign promises of Muhammadu Buhari was to return the Chibok Girls,
Yes.
right? Isn't he fulfilling his campaign promise?
Well, if you talk about returning them, yes. But even in the midst of these releases we've had, our concerns, my friend there talked about, Shomi talked about the strategic month in which they're released. At the moment, the most topical thing has to do with the president's health and the fact that his exit to Britain is indefinite, even if we had issues at the outset of the fact that he handed over, and the statements in the document, of course, section 145, subsection 1 was quoted. But we have to look at it like this. The economy of the country is one. Now, people always say that witch cried the night before, the baby died in the morning. When the president went for his medical vacation the first time, up until he left, we didn't have a substantive the Chief Justice of the Federation, talking about Justice Walter Onoge. He left few days after Justice Walter Onoge was confirmed. The president left on Sunday. By Thursday, the budget was passed. Please, people should tell me that I'm a crazy human being talking on television if there is not something more than meets the eye happening. So I think it's important to know that whilst we rejoice on the one hand that the girls have been rescued, there are other germane issues that affect the fabric of Nigeria. Of course, this is one, because we need to move ahead. This is May, not a dime in the 2017 budget has gone to anybody across the land, and we're talking about...
Who would you hold responsible?
Obviously, are hold the people who have the responsibility to make it happen. If the president, who was not feeling well, could actually let the budget come to the House 14th of December 2016, and those who are well have to wait 5 months, then we've got to check who's sick here.
Those who are well being the National Assembly?
Well,
you don't want to name names?
Well, let's use our tongue to counter teeth.
You know, since we're talking about this, let's be clear on this.
Yes, please.
You know, let me come back to you, Victor. Somehow I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to answer the question anyway.
Do you know my mind?
She's a psychic.
I know how to read your mind.
That is strange.
But yeah,
to be able to read somebody's mind.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's a gift. But you see, I'm imagining if President Buhari hadn't secured the release of just one Chibok Girls, what you, Victor, would say concerning his campaign promises that he was going to release them, what would you have said?
What would I say? That is not the only...
You would have crucified him,
No,
right?
that's not the only... That is not the only campaign promises he
But
made.
it is one of them.
He told us that he was going to build a refinery each year. Has he laid the foundation of a refinery since he entered power, since he was elected? The answer is no. There are many other ones. He promised to feed the children. Has he started feeding? Has he started feeding the children?
Started feeding the children.
Yes.
No,
not to the best
Some batch of that.
Yeah.
5,000 in this country. In one state.
Oh, they're paid in Kwara.
You understand? So there were many promises he made during the electionary period. Today he has not fulfilled any of them. And one of the key
he hasn't fulfilled any of them.
One of the key promises he made was to build a refinery each year, which is very vital because today why we are spending so much foreign exchange is because of the importation of refined petroleum products.
And he's responsible for that?
Yes,
he's
the minister. He's the president of the country.
Okay.
He's the chief executive officer of the country. He's the #1 citizen. And he made that promise. By now, we would have expected like 2 refineries. Or if it is one that is completed, because he's promised to build a refinery each year. So,
all right.
And again, talking about security, in the one hand, he's winning this war against insurgency, but the Fulani herdsmen are going from one state to the other, killing people. It's the same security issue. Today, if you go to Abraka, where we have Delta State University, the Fulani herdsmen have occupied another forest there, which they have termed as Sabisa in Delta State, where the Fulani herdsmen are leaving that jungle to go and massacre people. It's all over the news. So why he's winning in the side of the Boko Haram, on the other side, in the side of the Fulani herdsmen, he has not won anything. None of them has been arrested. And that is why there's hunger in the land, because people will labor to cultivate their farm. Fulani herdsmen will just go there with their cattle and ravage the place and When you ask questions, they gun you down. And nobody is asking how are they getting the AK-47 that they are using to destroy the farmers across the country. So, to me, it has not really performed well in the aspect of security.
Okay, let me come to you, show me. So, Victor says that the president has not built a refinery each year. I don't know if he remembers that the country is just coming out of recession, that the price of crude fell, and that it was in the news that the federal government, in conjunction with a private firm, has started building or will start building a refinery soon in the country. But do you think so far President Buhari has delivered on any of his campaign promises?
The truth of the matter is we are in a strange period because the solution to our problem is no longer those campaign promises.
Okay.
The solution strictly lies in restructuring the country.
Restructuring.
Yeah, restructuring. Look, if we conduct elections for the next 10 years, we will still not make progress. The conditions necessary, to deliver your promises will not exist in the first instance, because the country as structured currently is such that it's suffocating everybody. Whether you look at it from Hausa Fulani, who are also competing for resources, the same resources on the surface of Nigeria, or you look at it from an Ogoni person whose riverine, has been polluted, or you look at it from a southwest or a southeasterners whose farms have been devastated, by the Hausa Fulani or the Fulani herdsmen. What we realize is that we are in a state where we have not clearly defined the structure that will deliver development, to us. And that is a major issue. What we seems to have currently is competing interest within the country, rather than, looking at issues that people should be allowed to organize and set their own priorities on what are their developmental goals so that they can achieve them, like we used to have in the days of Confederacy. But that much said, you cannot take away from Buhari that on security, he has done a lot more than the previous administration. The reason is this. When Buhari came into power, 27 local governments were under the control of Boko Haram, and more areas were being threatened. He came in, he's been able not only to reclaim them, but able to degrade the effectiveness and the powers of Boko Haram, to the point that, because before you negotiate from a point of power. If you talk to people who understand the game theory, the power game theory, you negotiate from a position of strength. When you claw back some land, you now say, do you want to talk? But you don't talk from position of weakness, because you will capitulate. So he was able to do that, and we can't take that away from him. Yes, we have the menace, of Boko Haram. It's the same thing. Yeah. The menace of Fulani herdsmen is the same thing as Niger Delta, militants blowing up oil wells. Their whole militancy is the same thing as kidnappers in Southwest, kidnapping people. It's the whole security issues. The fact of the matter is, Victor touched on one major issue, which is, he highlighted the fact that the governor of the state is the chief security officer. That is correct, absolutely. But who controls the weapons of coercion? Who controls the security operatives? The presidency. That is one of the anomalies that must be corrected. And because of that, you cannot easily blame a governor who does not control the budget for the security services, for the lapses in security in his state. It is difficult, so you end up blaming the presidency. So when you actually look at it, it is in our own interest to now restructure to ensure that we can achieve meaningful security. If we had devolved, the policing of the country, to the state, by now the issue of Boko Haram would not be as severe as it is currently.
Awesome. So officially, I'll introduce the viewer to this show, but I've done that already. So I'll probably just read out the number to you, invite the viewer rather to be part of the show. Please send me your SMS, right? The number is 0812 1775 348, right? 0812 1775 348. You should have that on your screen shortly. So Shomi says, until you create the institution, whoever is there might not succeed.
Well, let me begin from the various geopolitical zones in the country. from the south here, where we're talking from, to the northeast, where we have this problem, you have 6 states that make up each of the geopolitical zones, but one region suffers, and that's the southeast, that has just 5 states making up the southeastern geopolitical zone. That is, in the first place, is an anomaly. If you want anything to thrive in a democracy, you do the best you could to strike a balance so that when people talk, they won't talk on major issues that are very conspicuous. They talk about minor issues that you could sit with them to discuss. And that is why the resonated voice of those clamoring for Biafra may not be heard to die down sooner than later. It is simply because they feel, in the first place, why do we have 5 states and other regions have 6? This is a very serious issue that must be considered. Then moving forward, you want to talk about the description of the authorities when it comes to ensuring the security of the country. Shomi said something very, very germane here. He mentioned that although the governors are the chief security officers of their respective states, the control of the security operatives in respective states of the Federation is at Asorok. And that is something you have to talk about. There are peculiar challenges of security in each state of the Federation. And I can say here that the president cannot completely be at home with the nature and the dimensions of problems that each state faces. It is therefore important to give a serious reconsideration to the composition of our security network in the country so that we can have the respective states have their hands firmly on security challenges in the state, and that cannot happen until we address that. Now, let us also look at some other institutions of government. There are certain things you may not be able to achieve until you go to Abuja. The liaison offices in respective states are practically dead. If you go to Victoria Island, these liaison offices, we don't really understand what it means to devolve powers, to delegate responsibilities, and also make the respective delegated segments to function as if it were the head. And that is one thing that we perhaps have not taken into serious consideration when we talk about our democracy. Democracy lies so much in your ability to delegate, yet the people you have delegated will function optimally, that the persons who delegated this responsibility would not feel that there is anything lacking. And it is important we address this. Okay, let's look at the respective states itself. You find the local government so emasculated that you cannot, it is simply a replica of what you have at the center. So if there has been, in truth, a federal system, not by words of mouth or divisions, but actionable federalism, you find that the humongous problem we face time and again, where people themselves feel they are not part of the polity. When Donald Trump came to power, before then, he said, let's make America great again. If you told the average Nigerian, let's make Nigeria great again, it's as bad palliatives, it's as bad airy platitudes, simply because the person sees himself or herself first from the small region he comes from in Otukpo in Benue State, before he talks about the big geographical entity that covers over 900 square kilometers of this place called Nigeria. So it is very, very important let this country begin first by creating an extra set for the southeast. Before we talk about anything, it is important. Let us have 6 across the 6 geopolitical zones. Then we can now begin to discuss this on another level. It is very important.
Okay, so I'm thinking, Victor, 36 states right now most of the states.
There's a federal capital territory.
Okay, minus the FCT.
Yes, please.
35 states, most of them cannot even take care of themselves. They've had to take bailout from the federal government every now and then. They can't even pay salaries. But Kono is asking for an extra state.
There are some states that are so poor that you want to ask me who did the documentation for their creation.
Yeah, but you're asking for an extra state.
It is excuse me, when they were creating those other states, were they not aware that there was a lacuna somewhere that should have been addressed? I don't care if we are 39. Let there be square in the respective geopolitical zones. Leave the FCT first.
Okay.
So that we can strike a balance.
Okay,
and resolve these issues.
Let me ask you, Victor, do you subscribe to that? Would you say that Nigeria needs one more state?
We even need up to 50 states.
Oh, wow.
I was fair.
And I will tell you why.
Why?
What is the population of South Tome and Principe? It's about 800,000. Okay. It's not up to a local government area. in Nigeria. There is no state in Nigeria that is not more than some 80 countries in this world. What is the population of Bahamas? A whole country is about 400,000. A local government area in my state is more than some countries. So we need more states in this country. And again, when I hear people blaming the states that they are not productive, I just laugh. You have taken the power of production from there. You said the state owns the land, but what is in the land belongs to the federal government. That is number one corruption that is bedeviling this country. How can a state own land, but what is in the land belongs to another government? Okay. I've never heard it in my entire world. My little research I've conducted that state will belong to land will belong to state, but what God has put in that land now belongs to another government. It is only in Nigeria, and somebody is talking about corruption. If we don't correct that, we are not moving anywhere. That is the number one corruption. Okay. Let the state have control over what they have. Then they will be able to explore and exploit the natural resources that God has embedded in the land and use that to develop themselves. But what we have today, the state have no power to explore and exploit what God has put in their land. It is only the federal government. And that is why one man will sit in Abuja in the name of president. He will go and allocate oil blocks to his wife, to his brothers, to his sister, to his friends, and those God has blessed with the oil, they have no say in what God has blessed them with. They become foreigners in their own land. And somebody will tell me that there will be peace in such a country. There can never be peace. So until we restructure this country, I have said it time without number that we need to restructure this country. Those who are blaming the state that the states are not competent, the states are lazy, they don't know what is happening, because they don't have power over what God has given to them. You cannot tell me that I own the land, and what is the land belongs to another person. And that person, in the name of federal government, is the one that will take control of everything. He will come and bring explorer to come and explore the land, or miners to come and mine the land, and take whatever is in the land, take it to Abuja, and sell. After selling, whatever he desires, he gives to you. If it is 1 naira, he gives to you. If he doesn't feel like giving to you, he doesn't give to you. So where will the state make money to run itself?
It brings us to the case of restructuring.
But that is it.
Come to you, Showomi.
Yes.
So Kunu says 1 extra state. Victor says 50 more states. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think whether we create 100 states or we create one, if we don't look at the structure of this country, we still cannot. It will still, if it's as Nigeria is run currently, a kind of unitary federalism, will still end up in square one. Oh. It will still not be able to deliver what we want. When Awolowo was developed Western region, they did develop Western region with cocoa money, not with oil money. And not only that, he only had himself and just tens of ministers, commissioners, who did it. They had their own constitution, they have their own high commission, you know, outside the country, and yet Nigeria remained. Same thing for other parts of the country, the eastern region and the northern region. What the north was developed with groundnut money. So what we need to focus on in the first instance is to look at the structure that is suffocating development. As we are speaking today, I would concur to what Victor said to a point. If you choose, whether you like it or not, if you choose that you want to distribute power, you want to provide power for the whole of Lagos State or the whole of Ogun State as a governor, you cannot do it without federal government approval. So what has federal government got to do with supplying power, you know, to the people of Ogun State? And you are being stopped from doing that. If you want to mine, you cannot mine the resources without federal government approval. Whether it's limestone, is oil, name it, bauxite, anything. Okay. You need the permission of federal government to do that. So state governments do not have the free hand to exploit the resources within their areas. And therefore, we were encouraged to believe in this, you know, beggar mentality, which is you take away the resources from different states of the country, you take it to Abuja, you ask their commissioners to come and beg, you know, for the money. So which is quite strange. In any real federalism, true federalism, what they pay is they pay a percentage, you know, to the center. Agriculture is the mainstay of our economy, for instance. So many of our people is the largest employer, you know, is agriculture. So many of our people are, you know, peasant farmers and all that, and they've been able to live their life through that. The state government have not been able to help them because the states control the land, but the federal government controls the budget. Go and check the federal government budget for agriculture and add up the whole of the states.
There is simply over about 103 billion in this current government.
Precisely. If you don't control the land, you cannot do agriculture with that land. You don't own the land. What are you doing with the money for agriculture, for Christ's sake? Why are you keeping it in Abuja? It's the same thing. Look at all, that is what we have. Look at water resources. It's the same, exactly the same thing. The provision of water, federal government is not providing water to anybody. So why do they have a department for water resources? So why are they allocating money to that section?
Until these things are sorted.
We need to sort all of them out because these are issues which are militating against development. Take, for instance, people talk about oil. They talk about VAT. In Lagos alone, I think it's in 2014, the two ports, the first I think is under Okaru, this DG Federal Internal Revenue, yes, Okaru, that they made the first 1 trillion. Out of that 1 trillion, 480 billion came from two ports in Lagos State, Apapa and Tinkan Island, which translates to 20 billion naira more. The same year, Lagos got about 125 billion from federal allocation. So what is the point in taking away resources and giving them a pittance? Look at a state like Ogun State. How many people realize that Ogun State alone, from Shagamu to Ewekoro to Ibeshe, are responsible for 84.2%, of houses built in this country from cement from one state. We keep exploiting. What are we giving back to those states? It's the same thing with Niger Delta, where you take the oil. What are we giving back to those states? It's quite strange. It's a strange federalism that we have. Right? We need to review this arrangement. There is no state in Nigeria that cannot prosper. Let me give you a good example, Gombe. What is wrong with Gombe approaching Lagos? Lagos built a refinery in Gombe strictly to export refined products. Gombe will make so much money, will be richer than many states in Nigeria. We can now cooperate. We need to restructure and create the basis for such cooperation.
Amazing. So as we put this topic to rest, on a final note, we hear that negotiation is ongoing for more girls to be released.
We're aware that that is going on.
Yes, so if the criteria for this release would be for more commanders to be released, would you subscribe to that?
Well, I think the approach must change. As much as we know the girls being released, we need to know those commanders so that if they pose any further security threat, we can inform security operatives. We cannot have commanders released and we don't know the commanders that are released. It is very, very important. This man was a terrorist. He's a terrorist. In fact, if somebody is a terrorist, the person is a threat to the most peaceful community in this country or anywhere else. And let us say this, of the 82 girls released, we are aware now that about 73 or so have already been identified in terms of, okay, this person was there, because they are comparing lists, the list that they had before they released the girls and the current names given to them by government so that they can match identities and know whose child belongs to where. So, but I think strongly that we should negotiate further for the release of more girls. Then I don't think something that is giving concern is the fact that, telling us that some of them do not want to return because of what is called Stockholm Syndrome, where you begin to develop soft spot for your captor, should not be heard. These people were taken wrongly by force, and most of these people need rehabilitation. So part of it should be, no matter what you tell us to do, every of these girls must come out of the den of terrorists. They don't have room to tell us that they already want to stay with them. I think it is going to help us here to get them back to their parents and rehabilitate them. It's very important, and I think that is going to be the way forward for us.
Oh, way forward. So more girls to be released, negotiations. Would you subscribe to anything to be done for more girls to be released?
Well, anything can be done as long as they are going to be released. But I still don't believe that they are under the captivity of Boko Haram. They are under the captivity of politicians. The reason is this. The 21 that were released last year, they have not been allowed to see their parents. And last year, by December, when they wanted them, when they allowed their parents to see them, it was their parents that went to see them in the under the protection of security agency. What do you say to that? And even this one that have been released now, they have warned them not to discuss their experiences with their parents.
All right.
So what do you think we can make out of this thing? That's why I don't believe that they were kidnapped by Boko Haram. They were kidnapped by politicians.
Let me quickly take this message. This is from Mr. Ladi Orimo Ladi, and he says, "Hi Vivian, we want to thank God for His mercy over the return of these yet again 82 Chibok girls, and now turned 2 young women and 4 saving and for saving their lives till now and bringing them back to their parents. We should give our appreciation to the government. But why would some people keep blaming the government for this exchange? I hope people of these negative thoughts will also experience this type of lust. Oh no, you're not going to pray like that for people.